The majority of people recall British comic Benny Hill because of his slapstick humor, which could make even the most somber audience chuckle. Global audiences were captivated by his distinct humorous approach and on-screen persona. However, the show came under increasing fire for its use of offensive humor and its representation of women as society's perceptions shifted. Even though Benny had millions of dollars, he battled uncertainties and had a severe dread of spending money. In addition to wearing his clothes until they were worn out, Benny even glued the soles of his shoes back on when they fell free. Come learn more about the history of the Benny Hill Show. Born in Southampton, England on January 21, 1925, Alfred Hill, later known as Benny Hill, was considered a class clown. He was already earning money by performing well-known songs for beachgoers at the age of 6. As a youngster, he left school to work as a milkman, but he eventually made the decision to move to London in the hopes of a brighter future. There he was able to secure a position in the props department of a theater. Was given an opportunity by the director, who was pleased by Hill's backstage impressions, after one actor was unable to perform because he was intoxicated. Benny received mechanic training after being drafted into the British Army in 1942 during World War II. In September 1944, he deployed in Normandy, where he operated searchlights, drove trucks, and performed maintenance. He later transferred to the Combined Service Entertainment Division, which serves Marines, airmen, sailors, and soldiers. Benny made the decision to pursue a career in show business after seeing comedians in British music halls. He decided to go by Benny in honor of fellow comic Jack Benny. When World War II ended, Benny Hill started over and achieved unprecedented success with his first television appearance in 1950 and his first radio appearance on Variety Bandbox on October 5, 1947. In addition, he played a different character in each episode of the sitcom Benny Hill, which he starred in from 1962 to 1963. He portrayed the part of an ass in a television drama called A Midsummer Night's Dream, Nick Bottom, that same year, 1964. The Benny Hill Time program, which he hosted from 1964 to 1966, featured comedic sketches such as Bond and the Beatles. Benny Hill made 5 feature film appearances. Who carried it out? 1956, Light Up the Sky. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, 1968, Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines, 1965, The Italian Job, 1969, and 1960. Moreover, he produced 2 short films. The Waiters, 1969, and Eddie, 1970 August. A collection of Benny Hill's early TV shows were included in the 1974 release of The Best of Benny Hill. Currently, Hill's many well-known audio productions include Harvest of Love, 1963, Peep's Diary, 1961, Transistor Radio, 1961, Gather in the Mushrooms, and Ernie, the Fastest Milkman in the West, 1971, which peaked at the top of the UK charts during the Christmas of that year. He won an Ivor Novello Award in 1972 for the song Ernie. A lot of influential people love Benny Hill. During his 1970s tour, Michael Jackson, Adam Carolla, and Johnny Carson even gave Hill applause. Hill played Scuttle in the 1987 Genesis music video for Anything She Does. Rapper Snoop Dogg expressed his love for Hill in 2011. Many movie stars, like Mickey Rooney, Michael Caine, Burt Reynolds, and many more, enjoyed Hill's humor while he was working. And he was a comedy genius like Charlie Chaplin and Stan Laurel, according to novelist Anthony Burgess. How do you feel about Benny Hill being compared to Charlie Chaplin? During the early 1970s, one of the most watched television shows was Benny Hill's Show, with millions of viewers worldwide. All that can be mentioned is that the show was full with memorable sketches and characters who also did physical comedy. With brief comedic and musical segments, this program debuted on BBC television in 1955. Before moving it to Thames Television in 1969, Hill brought the show to the BBC until 1968. Mime, slapstick, satire, and even double entendre were all hallmarks of the Benny Hill Show's humor. In 1971, this show's peak viewership reached over 21 million. Hill received the BAFTA Television Award in 1972 for his work in the Best Entertainment Performance and Best Writer categories. The program gained popularity in the US in the 1970s and continued to run in syndication until 1991. Hill won the Rose d'Or in 1984, and it had nominations for Emmys in 1980 and 1981. The show was cancelled by Thames Television in 1989, though, because of dwindling viewership and hefty production expenses of about $555,000 per episode, or $1.75 million in 2024. The influence of the show continued even after it was cancelled. The Sound of ITV, the country's favorite theme tune, featured its theme music as the top choice in the 2015 ITV special. The Benny Hill Show's captivating plot and intriguing structure kept fans interested. Benny Hill appeared in brief comedic bits, while modern musicians occasionally performed. Hill frequently wore different outfits to portray a variety of roles. The show was defended for its misogyny, claiming that the males were made to look stupid while the women maintained their dignity. The show used mime and parody techniques with visual gags in quick motion to produce what Hill referred to as live animation. With the instrumental yakety sax playing, the show sometimes concluded with a fast-paced chase scene in which Hill was being chased, frequently as a result of his pranks, imitating the chases of the original Keystone Cop. In addition, Hill composed and performed pattern tunes and delighted audiences with one-take melodies and fast-paced lyrics. Hill's 1976 spoof, Murder on the Oregon Express, demonstrates how his inventive use of television cameras enabled him to produce humorous illusions. He portrayed detectives like Ironside and Kojak from the 1970s using editing, camera angles, and impersonations. He also made fun of imaginary characters like WC and American celebrities throughout his career. Fields, Marlon Brando, and his version of the B-Team parodied television programs such as The $6 Million Man, Starsky and Hutch, and The A-Team. Hill not only made fun of American celebrities, but also British celebrities like Shirley Bassey, Michael Caine, and newscaster Reginald Buzank, as well as international performers like Nana Muscuri and Miriam Makeba, Richard Mickelmore and Alan Wicker. In addition, he imitated comedian Dave Allen, producers Tony Hatch and Roger Whittaker, pop show hosts Jimmy Savile and Tony Blackburn, and politicians Dennis Healy and Lord Boothby. Hill would sometimes even pose as Nicholas Parsons, his former co-star. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf parody? He performed as Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. Written by James Q. Spider, Rich, and Boots Randolph, the show's ending theme, Yakety Sax, became a household name. With vocal assistance from the Ladybirds, who also starred in films from 1969 to 1974, Ronnie Aldrich served as the musical director. The initial appearance of Aldrich's rendition of Yakety Sax, which debuted on Thames Television in 1969, featured Peter Hughes on the saxophone solo. In 1973 to 1974, Albert Elms took on the role of musical director for a few episodes. "Yeah, it's the Benny Hill Show," was frequently said by Henry McGee during the show's lively announcer introduction. Hill was introduced as the lad himself starting in 1975. "Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you all again very soon," was a common salute he used to finish the performance. "Till then, farewell." Among the primary cast were Jackie Wright, Bob Todd, Nicholas Parsons, Ken Said, John Keefe, and Henry McGee. Jane Lee Wright, Sue Bond, Bettina LeBeau, Leslie Goldie, Sherry Gillum, and Diana Darby were among the regular female cast members, also known as Sexpot Women. Sue Upton, Louise English, and a dancing group called Hill's Angels later became regulars on the show. Jane Leaves made a fleeting appearance in the early 1980s. Maggie Streeter was one of the Ladybirds' frequent female supporting vocalists. Among the character actresses were Patricia Hayes, Helen Horton, Rita Webb, Bella Imberg, and Anna Dawson. The reasons why Benny Hill never married or had children despite his notoriety are unknown. Actress Annette Andre was one of two women who acknowledged turning down his approaches in the early 1960s, though specifics were kept under wraps. In a Daily Mirror interview with Jane Dexter, Hill discussed his struggles to find a girlfriend, likening it to working in a chocolate factory where it was impossible to concentrate on just one option due to the abundance of options. A woman with common sense and from a regular job, such as an office worker, factory worker, or shop assistant, was what he said he wanted. His romance with dancer Doris Deal was the closest he ever got to marriage, but it ended when she said she wasn't ready. Rumors regarding his sexual orientation surfaced despite his romantic difficulties, which he vehemently denied. He maintained his attention to detail, worked long hours on designs and scripts, and was renowned for his meticulousness. Hill lived simply despite his fortune, renting a double-room apartment in London for 26 years before relocating to Fairway's Teddington Mansion in 1986. He still rented rather than owned a home. He sought his upbringing as the reason he was a man of everyday habits. As a result, he chose to do simple things like get cheap food from the grocery, walk rather than take a cab, and fix his clothes rather than buy new ones. He never had a car, even though he had a driver's license, and he lived a life of the minimum requirements, more akin to an alchemist. Despite his introversion, Hill thrived in the spotlight, combining his love of music and humor. Being a gifted saxophonist, he frequently parodied well-known songs and included music into his comedic sketches, which gave his shows an extra creative edge. The Benny Hill Show's enormous popularity was a result of his commitment to his art. But did Benny Hill have any more to offer? Watch to find out. Benny Hill, who played all three of the Beverly Sisters, a toothy Moira Anderson and Fanny Craddock, was well known for hilarious roles in drag even though he was never gay. One of his darker characteristics was his mistrust of women, and his private life remained a mystery. Even though he was talented, Hill was incredibly bashful and uncomfortable among women. He frequently spoke of two early experiences that influenced his bachelorhood, including a beach girl who refused to share her shells, and another at a carnival where a girl wouldn't give up her sugar floss. These experiences were so horrific, he said, that they warranted his everlasting seclusion. Although he acknowledged that he had followed these females home, he maintained that he had never spoken to them and denied doing so. It's up for debate whether this was gallant or unnerving, but it made his life more lonely. Despite passing the 11+ exam at the age of 10, Hill had few friends and showed little interest in going to school. Soon after, he went to work as a clerk at the Phoenix Wharf and Coal Company in Southampton. Later, he unloaded trucks for Woolworths, where he secretly harbored feelings for Jean, a girl working at the perfume counter, but was told no. Imagining himself as a wagon train driver, Benny Hill developed the character of Ernie, the fastest milkman in the West, while working as a delivery man for Dorset Dairies. He was awarded an Ivor Novello Award in 1972 for the song he penned about these exploits. A former co-worker once said that she had found solace in the maternal care of women years prior. In contrast to Robin Asquith, who was well known for his outrageous sexual adventures, Hill found that participating in local productions and variety acts was a potent means of attracting attention. Though his parents disapproved of his aspirations for theatrical fame, he began delivering jokes for a meager 5 shillings a night, thinking that being a clown would make everyone love him, and that's life for me. His mother suggested that he acquire a real job, Alfie, one that paid. You might be a postal worker. Hill relocated to London, where he spent nights in air raid shelters hacked by rats. In East Ham, he secured a position as an assistant stage manager, where he washed the animals of Peppino's Wonder Circus and Scylla's dogs in painted backdrops. He also performed in shows that required blackface makeup, stepped in for performers who were too inebriated to perform, and settled into a beautiful but dilapidated environment full of conscientious objectors, slackers, and homosexuals. Hill initially chose not to enlist, but from 1942 to 1947, he was drafted and served in the Army, an era he detested, particularly in an anti-aircraft searchlight unit where he performed poorly on conscripted examinations. In order to sustain himself and pursue a career as a comic, Hill spent his £52 demobilization bonus after the war. He entertained at Masonic banquets, showed up at the end of the pier in Weston-super-Mare, and did comedic calypsos on the radio. While performing, he began to sing, "B. I'm so beautiful," he said, but was demoralized and stopped his performance by an unpleasant remark from a heckler. In order to make his teeth appear whiter, he frequently painted his gums red and strolled to his gigs in the rain. A pivotal moment occurred when he accompanied Reg Varney on his trips to Margate and Sunderland as his assistant. When hecklers made fun of Hill, he was even more embarrassed since his attempts at a Chinaman conjuring act were not well received. Dancer Maureen Risco took note of Benny's lack of success with women while performing with Varney. When she questioned him about it, he related his well-known tales of unmet love, which brought back memories of his early years spent at the beach, the fairground, and Woolworth's perfume store. According to research, he had a close relationship with Doris Steele, a chorus girl at the Windmill Theatre in Soho, in 1954. When she asked for marriage and he declined, their relationship ended, causing her to depart. Enjoying the sense of lost love that had never really been his, he appeared to find comfort in his grief. In 1969, he reflected that true love might be a miserable experience. It feels nearly oppressive, like a real ache in the chest. Benny Hill's health, notably heart difficulties, interfered with his performance in the mid-1980s. In February 1992, a small heart attack struck him, and he refused to get a bypass, despite the doctor's advice. Hill demonstrated his dedication to his work by continuing to appear on TV despite his deteriorating health. He died at his Teddington apartment on April 20, 1992, at the age of 68. His body was found days later following unanswered calls. He died of coronary thrombosis, and he was laid to rest in Southampton's Hollybrook Cemetery. Although grave thieves broke into his coffin because of rumors that he was buried with gold, no treasures were discovered. The world still enjoys Benny Hill's comedy, and his reputation as a performer and musician lives on. Do you want to know why the Benny Hill Show ended? To find out, keep checking back. The Benny Hill Show provided entertainment for audiences in the US, the UK, and more than 100 other nations. The show, which ran for more than 20 years until 1989, made Hill famous all over the world with its many routines, which included chase scenes, comedy, and sultry ballads. Even while the show was successful, it was criticized for objectifying and sexist portrayals of women. In defense of his work, Hill stated that he wanted to make the males appear stupid while maintaining the dignity of the female characters. The way that people viewed the Benny Hill show and its comedy evolved with the times. With shifting societal norms, Hill's usage of explicit material came under fire. The program is nevertheless regarded as an important part of television history because of its innovative comedy and enduring impact on popular culture, even in spite of the criticisms. Nevertheless, it was ultimately terminated, mostly as a result of criticism regarding how women were portrayed. Its diminishing ratings, according to critics, were caused in part by sexism and prejudices. Despite his innocuous defense of his humor, Hill faced financial difficulties as a result of advertisers pulling their support. Due to the show's declining viewership and expensive production expenses, Thames Television was forced to cancel it. Hill's strict creative control might have had a role in the show's demise as well. Adjustments to appease critics or conform to shifting TV patterns were unlikely after the cancellation. Thames chose to cancel the show despite its previous success because of Hill's perfectionism, which frequently generated conflict with network management. Despite the disappointment of his supporters, Hill had to come to terms with the decision. What do you think of Thames' choice? Supporters of the Benny Hill show value Hill's magnetic personality and the show's distinctive humorous approach. Benny Hill quickly realized his comedic aptitude and changed the show from what was originally supposed to be a serious series to one that was entirely humorous, which is how it became so successful. Fred Scuttle was one of his most adored characters. He was a happy, eccentric person who was often in absurd circumstances. A light-hearted homage to Hill's dentist, Fred Scuttle enhanced the appeal of the program. Hill wrote the majority of the sketches, composed a large portion of the music, directed, and even edited episodes, demonstrating his substantial involvement in the show's creation. When the Benny Hill show switched from the BBC to ITV's Thames Television in 1969, it went from black and white to color. Super Teach, the first color episode, which debuted on November 19, 1966, improved Hill's visual humor. Hill left his mark in music and movies in addition to television. His last engagement in America prior to his passing was his 1991 TV spectacular, Benny Hill World Tour New York. Hill's trademark wordplay, slapstick, humor, and public interactions were all present in the New York City set special. His comedic ability, as well as his worldwide popularity and diligence, were demonstrated on this trip. The Benny Hill Show is still popular and airs on many channels, solidifying Benny Hill's place in television history despite his passing. His comedy is still influential. Channels such as Channel 4 and That's TV have persisted in airing the Benny Hill Show, introducing both new and devoted viewers to his comic genius. In 1998, Hill was included in Channel 4's Heroes series, which commemorated his influence on British comedy. His enduring impact is demonstrated by DJ Taylor's 2002 ranking of him as the third greatest British comic of the 20th century. Can we still find humor in Benny Hill's 2006 documentary? Examining Hill's humor in the context of contemporary comedy, Channel 4 showed how his humor is still relevant across generations by contrasting it with programs like Little Britain and The Catherine Tate Show. The Benny Hill Show made a significant comeback to national television after almost 2 decades in 2021 when That's TV announced it will air the show throughout their Christmas program. That's TV hopes to preserve Hill's legacy by bringing his iconic comedy to a larger audience through the rights to more than 40 hours of content. Benny Hill's lasting influence on the comedy industry is confirmed by the Benny Hill Show's ability to captivate audiences throughout the globe with its unique fusion of satire, musical humor, and slapstick.